Kevin Gordon here from Autosavant.com with your April 23rd edition of the Afternoon Commute. Right now in China, the Beijing Auto Show is going on, and there's some interesting stuff coming out of Beijing. Probably the most notable thing so far is the release of the URUS, which is the Lamborghini sports utility vehicle that's been hinted at and speculated about and leaked long before the show. Well, as of today, it's official, at least in a concept form. The URUS, and I'm probably mutilating that, won't really be a production model in best case scenario at this point until 2017, so it's a bit away. It gets its name supposedly from the ancestral origin of the modern fighting bull, or the modern cow, I guess, as we know it. Although there's some debate about that. If you look it up, that isn't actually the name, but nevertheless, their cow/bull naming convention seems to be staying intact. Expect this thing, pictures of it should be running by here, to be in the 600 horsepower range. What's going to power it, nobody really knows yet. By the dimensions of that front profile, doesn't look like they're going to be able to fit a V12 in there. So expect something smaller in displacement, less cylinders, possibly with some turbos on it. So Lamborghini a couple months ago came out and said, no turbochargers for our supercars. Well, I guess their SUV isn't going to be a supercar, so they're allowed to strap turbos on it. Expect it to come, of course, from the Audi, Volkswagen stable of engines, whenever it is. So the CEO of Lamborghini went on stage today during the presentation about it and talked all the wonderful things about it. 600 horsepower, ultra capable, lightweight, carbon fiber, blah, 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 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, while, of course, being very green for a 600 horsepower sport utility vehicle. What that means, who knows? It's all just speculation at this point. Here's an interesting little fact. Do you know what happened today in 1987? I'll wait. Chrysler took control of Lamborghini. Chrysler, when it was headed up by Lee Iacocca, took control of Lamborghini in 1987, today, April 23rd, 1987. They didn't keep it for all that long, but the one thing they did make under his reign was the former Lamborghini sport utility vehicle. So that's your Lamborghini news for the day. Next up for today, also news coming out of the Beijing Auto Show. Jaguar, however you'd like to pronounce it, announced that they will be making a gasoline-powered V6. It's going to be a derivative of their current 5-liter V8, basically with 2 cylinders lopped off. So if I do a little quantum math here, it should be about 3 liters in displacement. It's supposedly going to come in 2 different flavors of horsepower, both a 340 and a 380 horsepower model, and it's supposed to be the engine that's going to underlie the new Jaguar F-Type that was hinted about in New York. The photo of it that should be running by now by topspeed.com seems to be a very, very good rendering, so credit to them on that one. It will be supercharged, much like its larger brother, the V8, which is a little interesting considering the fact that, other than Audi, most of the rest of the world seems to be going purely turbocharged now because it's not a parasitic, loss power adder. It'll have water-to-air intercoolers and all the rest of the fun stuff. The other engine news out of Jaguar is the fact that the 2-liter turbo from the Evoque will also be available to them in the future for other cars. So look for that to start to make it into the cycles of Jaguar cars to, of course, drive better fuel efficiency and meet some of those required numbers for miles per gallon and carbon emissions in Europe. Next up for today, Audi, also known as Volkswagen, finally closed it out last week and bought Ducati. They paid, I think, just over $1.1 billion, which, as most of the bright people out there realized, means that you could have bought either Ducati or Instagram, an application that makes pictures look weathered and old, which I'm a big fan of, don't get me wrong. So now Audi owns Ducati. Should be interesting to see what collaborative efforts come out of that whole thing. The other thing that's not surprising about that, so Ducati had a relationship with AMG, or the performance division of Mercedes-Benz. Unsurprisingly, that relationship has been terminated as a result of Audi's purchase. And now for something a little different. So in a country called Australia, which is somewhere in the Pacific, I believe, Ford sells cars there, amazingly. They actually sell cars for a little country called Australia. Well, they sell some interesting cars there. In fact, so does GM under the Holden name. And what those are front-engined, rear-wheel drive sedans. One of those things that we used to have a lot of here in the United States, and we have almost none of now, although they're starting to make their way back. Well, in Australia, Ford sells the Falcon, and they've sold it for a long time, and it's available in a wide variety of formats. Okay, great, right? This has all been true for 20 years now or whatever. Well, they now have a prototype of a 2-liter EcoBoost in a Ford Falcon. And it's mounted longitudinally, not transversely. So it's the first time ever they've taken the 4-cylinder EcoBoost and mounted it longitudinally in a car. Much the same way that the F-150 EcoBoost is the first time they took the 3.5-liter 6-cylinder EcoBoost and mounted it longitudinally. From what I understand from Ford, this is not a small deal. You know, taking an engine and turning it 90 degrees is not a little bit of an effort. So, you know, engines are now either built to be in there sideways or in there the right way, front to back. Great, right? Well, it's a pretty interesting thing, because if you do the conversions on the numbers, the 2-liter EcoBoost in that car makes a little bit more than 240 horsepower and right about 260 foot-pounds of torque, which sounds very familiar to another 2-liter motor that's on the market today. And that is the 2-liter turbo that's now in the 328 BMWs. Okay, so why is all of that interesting to us Americans over here? Well, the rumors about the Ford Mustang going to a world platform in the future with an independent rear suspension, one would have to believe that that platform at some point would be something shared with what would be the future Ford Falcon in Australia. So it seems like a turbocharged 4-cylinder with an independent rear suspension, front engine, rear-wheel drive as a platform might become back available for Ford to sell on a world stage, which would be a very exciting thing, in my opinion, from an enthusiast perspective, and even from a commuter car, everyday driver perspective. And finally for today, you may notice that I'm coming to you from a different car once again. This is the lovely and tiny Volkswagen Tiguan. I forget what Tiguan means. I think it has something to do with some sort of lizard. I could be wrong. It could be the Rutan or the... What the heck is the other... Let's see. Tiguan, Rutan, Touareg. Yeah, the Touareg, the larger SUV. Anyway, we're in a Volkswagen Tiguan this week. And without spoiling the review, surprises, I can tell you that there's some very good things about it and some not so good things about it. So stay tuned for our full review on that. One thing I will tell you now about this is this 2-liter direct injected Volkswagen motor it's a little beast. I mean, this thing runs like, it just runs and runs and runs. I mean, talk about something that just works for being such a little thing. I mean, it goes right along for itself. Anyway, that's the afternoon commute for today, April 23rd. I'm Kevin Gordon from MotoSavant.com, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon.